A new chapter in Middle East tensions, the Israel-Iran conflagration. Recent escalations between Israel and Iran have intensified a volatile region, sending ripples across the globe. The conflict, marked by Israeli military actions and Iran's contentious nuclear ambitions, has challenged international diplomacy and tested geopolitical alliances. This analysis examines the dynamics of the ongoing confrontation, exploring historical precedents, the current landscape, and the potential global ramifications. Historical context: entrenched hostilities. Tensions between Israel and Iran are rooted deep in the modern political history of the Middle East. Since the Islamic Revolution of 1979, Iran has opposed Israel's existence, supporting militant groups like Hezbollah and Hamas as proxies in a broader struggle. For its part, Israel has viewed Iran's nuclear program as an existential threat, a sentiment that has shaped its national security policy for decades. The specter of Iran attaining nuclear weapons capabilities has driven Israeli defense policies, leading to military strikes on nuclear sites in Iraq, 1981, and Syria, 2007. The current situation echoes these past conflicts, albeit in a more complex, nuclear-ambitious Iran. Immediate provocations: the precipice of war. The latest surge in hostilities can be traced to a series of provocations, with the BBC reporting Israeli forces killing 51 Palestinians in Gaza, a dire humanitarian blight amidst mounting fears of broader warfare. Supplying Iran with a potential excuse to escalate military responses, these incidents have exacerbated an already volatile situation. As humanitarian organizations decry these acts, Israel justifies them as necessary measures against militant threats. Simultaneously, the New York Times notes President Trump's fluctuating stance on military intervention, influenced heavily by Israeli demands and domestic political pressures. In the initial phases of his presidency, Trump resisted calls for aggressive action against Iran, yet recent developments indicate a pivot towards alignment with Israeli interests. The Trump factor: a shifting U.S. policy. President Trump's rhetoric and policy decisions have injected unpredictability into the already precarious equation. Despite campaigning on promises of disentangling America from Middle Eastern conflicts, Trump faces increasing pressure both internationally and domestically to respond decisively to Iran's nuclear pursuits. This is underscored by Fox News reports on the American public's strong support for preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. Trump's earlier restraint is now potentially giving way to a more interventionist approach, as evidenced by the movement of 30 U.S. jets to Europe, a move that has fueled speculation about impending military actions. The complexity of U.S. involvement reflects a delicate balancing act: restraining Iran without igniting a regional war, and supporting Israel without undermining broader diplomatic efforts. International reactions and dilemmas. The international community's response is as divided as the conflict itself. European allies are wary of aggressive military interventions, urging diplomacy even as they recognize the threat posed by Iran's nuclear ambitions. For them, preserving the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, despite U.S. withdrawal, remains a priority, advocating for containment through economic and diplomatic pressure rather than military action. Conversely, key regional players are deeply invested in the outcome. Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states, longtime adversaries of Iran, view the conflict through a lens of strategic opportunity and existential threat. An emboldened Iran could disrupt regional power dynamics, prompting some Arab nations to tacitly support Israeli efforts. Regime change or deterrence. Israel's strategic calculus. Israel's strategy is reportedly influenced by more than just containment. The specter of regime change in Iran persists. As the New York Times analysis suggests, Israeli military efforts are reminiscent of America's past Middle East interventions, which often failed to achieve their intended outcomes. However, the idea of regime change introduces significant risks, potentially destabilizing an already fragile region. Israel's nuclear capabilities, though officially undeclared, add another layer of complexity. While designed as a deterrent, regional fears about nuclear proliferation loom large. Israel's secretive program, as highlighted by the New York Times, has been a subject of international scrutiny and debate, raising questions about double standards in nuclear policy enforcement. Iran's calculations, survival, and defiance. For Iran, the current conflict is as much about survival as it is about regional influence. The Iranian leadership, under domestic pressure and economic strain from sanctions, views nuclear advancement as a strategic lever. Tehran's approach is multifaceted, pursuing nuclear technology while avoiding direct conflicts that could catalyze regime destabilization. Yet the specter of an American or Israeli attack, particularly on key facilities like Fordow, demands strategic resilience. Reports from Fox News emphasize the threat posed by Fordow, a facility impervious to most conventional military strikes. Iran's investment in such hardened sites underscores its commitment to retaining leverage in negotiations and deterring aggression. The human cost, crisis in Gaza and Tehran. The humanitarian dimension cannot be neglected. The strife in Gaza, as mentioned by the BBC, highlights the acute human toll of geopolitical conflicts. Deaths at aid sites point to a growing disaster, a microcosm of larger struggles between militant factions and state actors. Tehran faces its own humanitarian challenges. Fear and uncertainty grip the population, as reflected in Iranian reactions to Trump's evacuation warnings. The potential for widespread disruption looms large, with millions of civilians caught between geopolitical machinations and nationalistic fervor. Looking ahead, perils and possibilities. As the world watches, the fate of the Middle East remains precarious. The possibility of broader conflict with devastating global impacts is very real. Energy markets could be thrown into chaos, regional alliances tested, and the specter of even broader international conflict looms large. Diplomatic solutions, though strained, remain vital. The pathway forward likely involves renewed negotiation frameworks, possibly under international auspices, that address not only nuclear concerns but regional security architectures. An emphasis on building confidence measures could avert immediate disaster. In conclusion, the unfolding Israel-Iran conflict exemplifies the volatility of Middle Eastern geopolitics, where historical enmities converge with present-day provocations. It challenges the international community to craft responses that deter aggression, uphold humanitarian priorities, and ultimately foster a durable peace. As global powers navigate these treacherous waters, their choices will echo far beyond the immediate theater of conflict, shaping the future political landscape of the region and the world.